So I'm sure a lot of people who have cats, and it's a little difficult to keep them confined. I mean, with your dog, you can still have your dog confined to your room or a space in the house, but cats tend to move around, and I don't know, I don't have much experience with cats, but
Okay.
they don't strike me as the kind to want to stay one place for a very long time. So let's move on to sensitivity training, because you had mentioned previously that some dogs, sorry, might be sensitive to some sounds, while other dogs, because they're desensitized, it might not affect them the same way. But sensitivity training is something that I'm curious about, because let's take, for example, horses. They go through a type of training where they become conditioned for mounted branch, for example. And even the canine unit, search and rescue dogs, they have to go through specific types of training. I don't know how humane the practice is. I've never actually seen it for myself. But what about sensitivity training for dogs dealing with fireworks and firecrackers? Is that something that we can explore? What are your thoughts on that?
I think we can definitely explore it as an option. I mean, we do know that we have to prepare as much as possible, and it is something that exists. How effective it will be really depends again on the animal and how it responds, how early we start this. So, for example, for dogs, what we try to do is you try to expose puppies. So, from a younger age, you expose them to levels of noises, and you build positive associations with those noises. So you can start at a low level. So it's not startling, and you give a positive association, and then you start building. So you give a higher level, a higher frequency of sound, and you give yet another positive. So you play, you hug, you can give treats. So it's all very positive, and then you keep increasing those frequencies. And at each level of increase, you reinforce that it's all positive. There's no danger involved. So eventually, when they do hear a very high level, they associated it becomes so positive for them. They don't start. The panic does not set in, and then that whole cascade of events, starting with the triggering of the nervous system, doesn't take place. If it does, it's probably not going to be as extreme as a dog who's not accustomed to hearing those noises. So I think there is some value in the sensitivity training. It would vary according to the species. As you said, horses undergo some degree of training, and dogs, and even for our domestic dogs, there are places that would offer that level of sensitivity training for them.
Some might find it, if you subject little puppies to loud sounds, and even though it's a gradual process, they might find that to be a little, they might be a little apprehensive about that. Is it damaging to them in any way?
No, I don't think that it would cause. If to be realistic about it, dogs generally have a lot more exposure than we realize. I mean, again, because their level of hearing is so much higher, we may say, "Oh, this is a high sound or this is a low sound," and the dogs may perceive that quite differently. So if I have a puppy and I say, well, hey, I'm going to expose him to this level of noise, he may take it or he may not take it. But again, it varies according to the dog. And if a dog becomes distressed with the level of noise, they will react. There will be a reaction. So I wouldn't say that it's cruel or it's insensitive to do that to an animal. There would be a lot of trial and error in it, to be totally honest. But that's why it's a gradual process. It's a gentle and gradual process.
What about our feline friends? I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about dogs, but what about cats?
The cats are also affected, but they tend to, I mean, even though they panic, they do find their ways. They seem to have it a little easier in terms of being able to escape. But when we do management of it, we will see, I mean, cats generally can they're jumpers, they're climbers, their anatomy allows for that. So it's safer for them to do some of the things to escape or to respond to a panic than a dog. For example, a dog trying to jump onto a table or a high cupboard will injure himself or may injure himself. A cat is equipped to do that. They're physically equipped to do that. So,
Mhm.
but they are affected. Cats are also very much affected by fireworks.
We tend to forget that cats are affected because you usually would see the dogs, in a frenzy. You don't see the cats doing that. And I guess, as you said, because they're swift, you don't get a
Yes.
chance to see them. So their flight reaction is actually quicker. But yes,
Yes.
they are affected. So I'm sure a lot of people who have cats, and it's a little difficult to keep them confined. I mean, with your dog, you can still have your dog confined to your room or a space in the house, but cats tend to move around, and I don't know, I don't have much experience with cats, but
Okay.
they don't strike me as the kind to want to stay one place for a very long time. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, the difference with cats is that when they panic, they usually, I mean, if they're allowed to and they have the facility, they would seek a quiet, dark place to hide.
Yeah.
So once they have that around, they would panic and they go and they get outside. They would seek a dark place to hide, and they probably stay there rather than run helter skelter down the road like a dog. And because there may be differences, there are differences in the way they react and how they seek comfort, how they try to protect themselves. The effects might be a little different. We don't see, unfortunately, a lot of these dogs. We see them on the roads after. We see them
Yeah.
injured or we see them bounce and we see the bodies on the road, but we really don't see as many cats. Not because we don't have a high cat population. As a matter of fact, we have a very high stray cat population, so there are a lot out there.
New Year's Eve and Diwali here in Trinidad are two major events that are fireworks events, fireworks related events. We have the firecrackers, we have the scratch bombs, and sometimes they go off for the entire week, not just on one night. So it's a continuous flow of explosions. And these are also high anxiety times for pet owners, especially pet owners. So let's create some categories, Dr. Seepersad, of management strategies, how we can actually help our little ones cope better with the fireworks season. So let's start with the basics.
Okay, so one very important thing you said there, and that's a good and which is an excellent starting point, is that it's a very tense period of time for the owner as well. But we are going to our animals, our pets depend on us to provide that comfort and protection. In providing that, we need to be as calm as we possibly can. We know it's coming. We need to be prepared. So mentally you're prepared and you got to keep yourself calm because your energies, your panic or your calmness will transfer onto your pet. It will affect your environment and the environment that the pet is in. So it starts there. So we have that expectation. We know what we're going to do. So we're going to prepare ourselves. We're going to prepare the environment for our pet. So best case scenario is that you have an enclosed area that your pet in which your pet can be kept. We're looking at a room, again, preferably without windows, um, and a room in which the it can be darkened, so it can provide dark areas, quiet areas, if possible, for an animal to hide or to seek some peace. If there are windows in that room, because it's not always possible, a bathroom is a good place if that's
Mhm.
possible. But if that's not possible, and if you must use a room that has windows in it, you can try always closing those windows, using curtains, blackout curtains, heavy curtains, which would help to muffle sounds. Within the room itself, you keep it as calm as possible, but you can also use sounds to act as distractions or to muffle the inside sounds to muffle outside sounds. You can use TVs, you can use radios, things, and those are sounds that your animals are accustomed to. So it drowns out some of the outside influence, and it gives them something that they are accustomed to. Um, you can also use things like toys, comfort. You give them comfort items, their toys, their blankets, their pillows, their beds, even snacks or treats. You can feed them if you are not planning to sedate. You can feed at that time. Um, you can use things, there are anxiety jackets as well, which provide comfort for pets. So those are, and that actually was designed for areas with thunder, with the sounds of thunder. So those thunder jackets, they're called anxiety jackets. So what they do is it creates a feeling of being hugged, just like when you swaddle an infant. So it provides that level of comfort for them. So that's another strategy. There are also calming diffusers. So they diffuse scents into the environment. So here again, scent makes a difference. So calming scents to the animal. So just as you have scents associated, negative scents, dangerous scents associated with fireworks and scratch bumps, you can have calming scents that can help keep your animal under control. In very bad cases, or where the animal extremely becomes aggressive or extremely panicked, chemical sedation is an option, but that must always be done in consultation with a vet. All right, so we in the situation now where we don't have a room, and there's some animals that just have to be chained or roped to restrain. It's not an ideal situation, and definitely not for times when we have loud noises from fireworks or scratch bombs, but sometimes that's the best that could be done. The other option would be an escaping animal. If you have to restrain using rope or using chains, I would always suggest that your animal is supervised, because again, they can strangle themselves. Never ever chain or tie an animal on a height, because they jump, and that will be critical, deadly for them. Then there's the situation we have with strays. So they have no homes, and that one is very, very challenging, particularly for rescuers. You accustomed feeding for a whole year or most of a year. You're accustomed going there and feeding in a particular spot, and after these festivals, after these episodes, you go there and there's nothing there, because the animals have tried to defend themselves by just running. So, I mean, that one is really very tricky. It really depends a lot on your ability to bring a dog, or bring a dog or a cat in and say, let's give you a safe place for the night, shelter, overnight shelter. But as you said, sometimes these things go on for a whole week. So it really depends a lot on the person, what they're willing to do, what they're capable of doing to help a stray animal cope at a time like that.
Dogs do have anxiety.
Yes, they do. And again, it's based a lot on what they've been exposed to. And particularly, as you mentioned, so strays, and a lot of strays that we find, we have no idea the full extent of exposures. I have had strays, I've rescued strays and been unable for over 10 years, not been able to touch that dog. And then I've had strays who have been able to put on a bed with me, and they're fine. The range of experiences that they're exposed to varies. But yes, they do. So dogs do experience anxiety, normal everyday anxiety, much less for periods, highly stressful periods like when we have scratch bombs or fireworks.
So, what can we do to create a safer and more comfortable space for our fabulous pals? Catch up in our next episode. Drop me a line on Facebook or Instagram at Karen KD Das. If you'd like to get in touch with Dr. Nisshi Seepersad, you can find her on Facebook or Instagram at First Line Veterinary Plus, email or WhatsApp 478 8476. This has been a KDC production.